Welcome to another installment of This Is Not Normal on the Political Drain podcast with Drill Sergeant Doug, aka Admin Doug, a U.S. Army veteran, teacher, musician, and family man from Jamaica, now fights for justice and democracy through commentary and humor. Follow him on YouTube at Political Drain and at Sons of Liberty Official as Drill Sergeant, aka Admin Doug, continues to protect our freedoms.
What's up, YouTube? Drill Sergeant. And I was supposed to come out with something yesterday about the Supreme Court ruling, and they had a few of them yesterday that were all important. But there was one that seemed to confuse people the most, and that was the immigration hearing. And it wasn't about the actual immigration this time. It wasn't about the executive order that we're going to get into. What it was about is confusing. I'm sorry I didn't have it out yesterday night because I had personal things going on, and I apologize to my whole team for not having it out in a responsible amount of time. Couldn't help it. But for the rest of you, if you're still wondering, if you still need context, and if you're still not believing the other bullshit media that's out there, and you'd rather hear it from me because you understand that you're dealing with someone who actually cares about you and not just feeding you stuff for money, I encourage you to keep on listening. This is what happened. Once again, the Supreme Court is capitulating to Donald Trump. That's what's happening. Okay? And in doing so, they appear to be deserting their duties, straight up deserting them. Just like we saw Congress do, giving up their power to the orange Mussolini for whatever reason this is. In a ruling that stunk of corruption, much like the immunity ruling, that was the one that said the president can disobey any laws he wants to as long as he, and it better always be a he, or else we're going to change our minds instantly. Anyway, so as long as he gives us boats, plane rides, camper vans, and underage girls in secret rooms, and a gay lover on the side so that all the other oppressive, religious, Republican congressmen know that we're the same. Huh? What do you mean? What I mean is, as long as the president says, I'm doing this in my official capacity as president, then he can break the law. That's what that one says. Immunity case. Well, this time in a vote 6-3 with Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Thomas voting in favor, and the judges Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson voting against. What a surprise.
I want to just thank again the Supreme Court for this ruling. It's a giant.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Friday applauded the Supreme Court after it delivered what he called a monumental victory, limiting the power of federal judges to impose nationwide rulings to block his policies. That included his directive to limit birthright citizenship, which was halted by 3 injunctions issued by judges in Maryland, Massachusetts, and Washington state, while litigation challenging the policy plays out. But the Supreme Court did not let Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship go into effect immediately, saying the lower courts that blocked it must reconsider the scope of their orders.
Later, Judge Kavanaugh said that the suits could proceed with a class action vehicle, and the civil rights groups and organizations already filed that yesterday. They're on it. And there were 3 specific alternatives left open by this ruling. Here is where context is necessary because other media groups may have just left you to decide what all of this meant, and none of this really is clear. What is the judgment about? This case was not about birthright citizenship. This case was about whether or not the lower courts could give an injunction that cover the entire United States. The Supreme Court said no. Lower courts cannot give an injunction that the rest of the country now has to hold to until this, whatever case it is, goes up the ladder to the Supreme Court. That is horrible because it's not just pertaining to this case. And to be quite frank with you, this isn't the first president who's asked for this to be looked at, because anybody who does an executive order wants to know that a lower court can't stop it from being done anywhere. Presidents don't want that. On the other hand, Americans might just, because the reason why it was given an injunction that spread throughout the country is because so many lower courts have found every single one of the cases to be lacking, to be unconstitutional, to not be okay. And after enough of that happens, they say, you know what? We found this executive order to be so unconstitutional that we need to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere before the Supreme Court takes a look at it. By injunction, they mean our ruling stands. That's what you need to know. What exactly is Trump trying to do? What exactly is the Orange Mussolini Toucan Spray Tan Sam up to with this executive order? Let's talk about it. He signed this one on his first day back in office, so you know it's racist. You know Stephen Miller gave it to him, all right? This was one of the first executive orders to sign, and it was to do away with birthright citizenship. We'll probably show a link here, but you need that explained to you as well. Birthright citizenship is when you're born on American soil, that means that you are an American, period, no matter who your parents are. In this executive order, they want it to be so that at least one of your parents is an American citizen already, and then when you're born on American soil, you become an American citizen. This was already done away with in the courts 100 years ago. We offer birthright citizenship. The main reason why is because on the bottom of the legs of the Statue of the goddamn Liberty, it says, give us your huddled masses. And the only way to ensure that those huddled masses, the refugees fleeing persecution from the other countries, those looking for freedom in the land of the free and the home of the brave, who had our values running from persecution like we did when we started, could be a citizen when they were born here. That was the hope and the dream. That is what was upheld. So when they tell you it was just about slaves, yeah, it was as well. But it was held up many times by a Supreme Court who also saw the main reason for it was that you cannot be the American system that we proclaim to be without it. That's why.
Hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves.
The order could affect 150,000 babies born annually in the U.S. How about that for context? It was Barrett, who Trump nominated to the High Court in September 2020, who delivered the president a clear and dramatic win here, kneecapping the ability of lower court judges to block his agenda. Trump, who has privately complained about Barrett, was effusive in his praise. Oh, bootlicker, you get your head tapped, Amy. Does it feel good? Huh? This is what the Orange Maniac had to say. I want to thank Justice Barrett, who wrote the opinion brilliantly, as well as Chief Justice Robertson, Justice Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Thomas. Great people. Ugh. Justice Sonia Sotomayor accused the majority of abdicating its role in protecting the rule of law. With the stroke of a pen, she says, the president has made a solemn mockery of our Constitution. Rather than stand firm, this court gives way. And now that makes sense. The dispute over the president's attempt to unwind birthright citizenship has become intertwined with the administration's battle against nationwide injunction. That's why it may have been confusing. They're two different things. But understand now, the president and his allies have attacked judges for issuing nationwide injunctions and a slew of legal challenges to the Toucans and Spray Tan Sam himself policies, and even called for some to be impeached because they issue nationwide injunctions. That's why this was so important, even more so than the birthright citizenship. And in light of the tantrum tangerine calling for impeachment every time he doesn't get his way, a ruling like this could be just a capitulation the Supreme Court is trying to do to appease their lollipop giver, their pat on the head provider, because they don't want to seem too against Daddy Trump, which they've all on the right have now taken an affinity to calling him. Gross. Now, context. The executive order issued by Donald Tangerine Trump, the Tangerine Tornado himself, does not just apply to children of undocumented immigrants. It also applies to children of immigrants who are here lawfully, but temporarily, temporary visa status, green cards, work visas, school visas. You do not have to be undocumented nor illegally here.
So, Mary, we're going to begin with you because you are a primary in this subject. Tell me about this suit and tell me about how you read the Supreme Court's decision.
Sure. The suit that we brought just one day after the executive order was on behalf of 5 pregnant women and 2 immigrants' rights associations on behalf of their members. They are membership organizations, CASA and ASAP, the Asylum Seekers Advocacy Project, that have members nationwide, many pregnant members. These included women and pregnant members of ASAP and CASA that are from multiple different countries, that oftentimes are here on a legal status, because remember, the executive order does not just apply to children of undocumented immigrants. It actually also applies to children of immigrants who are here lawfully but temporarily. So that means a work visa, a student visa, temporary protected status, asylum applications, people who have permission to be here. We brought that case. We obtained a full nationwide universal preliminary injunction within 2 weeks of bringing the case. And that was one of the cases that the government went to the Supreme Court to say, don't review right now. We're just appealing the scope of the universal injunction. We think it should be narrowed down to the plaintiffs.
Okay, less than 3 hours after the MAGA Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that a federal judge couldn't have all of this power, the plaintiffs' counsel filed a new motion for temporary injunction and to certify a class to get the birthright citizenship issue back up to the Supreme Court as fast as humanly possible. Now, the courts won't save us from what we've got going on, but it's good to know that they're trying. It's good to know that there's someone out there. At least it leaves you less dejected at the end of the day. And I know it may sound like good old drill sergeant trying to find a silver lining in the cloud of shit hail, but I'm not the only one who's going to say that to you. There are other professionals who are telling you this. Popak, for instance.
We got breaking news just hours after, literally hours after, the United States Supreme Court ruled in earthquake-shaking manner that federal judges no longer have the ability to issue universal or global injunctions. They've got to take on the Trump administration one case at a time, one set of plaintiffs at a time, and they can't fashion relief to meet the challenge of, for instance, an order trying to rip away birthright citizenship. They can't do that by nationwide injunction. Well, Justice Kavanaugh in his concurrence said they can just use a class action vehicle. And Justice Sotomayor said, just use a class action. Okay, we're ready. A new class action motion has been filed in Maryland just hours after the Supreme Court shot it down. And at the same time, a request that Judge Boardman issue a temporary restraining order to restrain on behalf of the putative class, to restrain the executive order that tries to deny birthright citizenship to babies who are born or about to be born throughout the country. You asked for it, MAGA majority of the Supreme Court, and just hours later, because they were ready, the lawyers for public interest groups have struck again, filing their motion with Judge Boardman. It'll then be an emergency application by Donald Trump and the Department of Justice and his Solicitor General, John Sauer, to the United States Supreme Court. Right back on it, but now on the substance.
So, are you doomer spiraling? How about you call your representative in Congress? Because you know who else is catastrophizing right now? You know who else is freaking the fuck out right about now? The Republicans in Congress. Because the big, nasty, bloated budget bill is in trouble. Don't forget that. And we need to keep the pressure on Republicans. Pro-democracy actions that I can engage in that will further our cause. Maybe it's calling our electeds. Maybe it's attending an event near you. Maybe it's faxing the Republican Party using that fax resource that we heard from Eris. I'll put it down there. It's a great tool to gum up their lines, piss them off, and make sure that they see the change, not just click on it in an email. Maybe it's doing some kind of mutual aid work to care for your neighbors, to care for your community. What can you engage in that not only makes you feel empowered, but furthers the cause of democracy. That's what we're about. We give you the facts and the context. What you do with it is up to you. And in order to know what to do, you have to be informed. There's a lot of ways to do this. We're one. Ground News is another. Ground News has very quickly become one of my most prized resources, my go-to even, because I get to find out what stories are not covered by the blind spot feature, which I love. But not just the blind spot feature. Any of the stories that I bring up, I can see what either side is saying about it. I can also see who's paying for those headlines. It tells me who owns the publication, which also lets me know who they're writing it for. Many times, none of that is for us. But understanding the context helps us understand the story. Ground News is absolutely one of, if not the best way to know that you've gotten every side of a story and that there's not enough spin in the world that can have you misinterpret it. The one thing we know for sure that is the reason that this case means so much to so much of us is because they're going to be using citizenship, deportations, this executive order, Stephen Miller's ridiculous ideas that are coming fast. They're going to be using our citizenship against us. It's not just the undocumented. It's not just the person with a work visa whose kid is born here and they found a good way to excuse just deporting all of them for no reason. It's also the person running for mayor of New York. Zohran Mamdani has now had a blatantly racist and Islamophobic capitalist, little racist freak, Tennessee Congressman Andy Ogles, write a letter to Pam Bondi. Yeah, District Attorney Pam Bondi, asking the United States Department of Justice to denaturalize and deport the Democratic nominee for the New York City.
News, everybody. The Republican Party is filled to the brim with racists and bigots. It's not funny, but it's funny that I say it's breaking news to explain the joke that I don't think needed to be explained. Andy Ogles, once again, is trying to crawl up inside of Donald Trump's butthole and make him the happiest congressman he could possibly be. Andy Ogles is a congressman from Tennessee who has now sent a letter to Pam Bondi, and he tweeted about it, so proud of it, trying to revoke the citizenship of Zohran Mamdani, who is now the Democratic nominee to be mayor of New York City.
Blatant racism and Islamophobia. If they deport him, though, it'll make him a martyr. And his ideas also mirror a lot of what Canadians have currently and other socialist countries. They still have a capitalism there, and they're not communist. Please read up on that if you're not sure what that means. But don't let the Fugazi media tell you, because they don't know either. When they can use citizenship and the laws as a weapon, they will. And when anyone can get their citizenship taken away, everyone can get their citizenship taken away. If you think it's just about the them, whoever that them is, it's only a matter of time before it's you. And it's hard to believe that, because up till now, they didn't mean that for other white people. Now they do. They didn't mean that for powerful people with money. Now they do. They didn't mean it for people who were in government office and who had a whole lot of traction from the people around them and the citizens around him. Now they do. Furthering Donald Trump's cruelty and hate through weaponizing the law is just a day-to-day occurrence. Now, furthering the orange orangutan's cruelty and hate is just a daily occurrence. Not only is our next candidate racist, bigoted, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis just gave the cameras their first glimpse of Alligator Alcatraz. People.
Florida, you came up with this idea for Alligator Alcatraz. Explain it. Well, when you want to have deportation of illegal aliens, there's a process the DHS has to go through to vet, to process, and then to stage them for removal.
Right.
And, we've got jails, and our sheriffs and police are working. The state of Florida is all in on President Trump's mission. And obviously you have ICE operations, but that's not enough. And so there needs to be more ability to intake, process, and then deport. So this answers that. This is going to be able to have more than 3,000 illegals can be processed through here. We've got a massive runway right behind us where any of the federal assets that they want to fly these people back to their home country, they can do it one-stop shop. And by Tuesday, this will be able to have intake of illegals.
And people are thinking, okay, you're in the middle of the Everglades, it's hot. That would explain why you've got this bank of air conditioners here.
Yeah, so this is going to be, illegals will come in, they'll be processed. There'll be places for them to be housed. You'll have an ability for food. You'll have an ability for them to consult legal rights if they have that, because there is a process that's involved with this. So this is really everything. This is going to be a self-contained little area. And then, of course, you also have stuff for the staff that work here. So we've got laundry facilities, we've got showers, we've got, obviously, there you see the shower and bath facility. So this is being done.
What the fuck are you talking about? YouTube, do you see any of that? I see an open air tent with concrete floors, pre-attached porta potties that you call shower facilities. What sections for legal facilities are you talking about? It's an open air tent in the Everglades. DeSantis, I see a concentration camp. And I believe you said it's ready for intake on Tuesday? It's not under construction still. This is it, YouTube. The footage that I just showed you, if it sickens you, it very likely appeases some of the voters in Florida. So we will fight continuously, nonstop, every way we can. I'll put the faxing information. It's a really good idea. Find out your Congress people. Find any way you can to give mutual aid, groups to join, food drives, everything. Everything we can do is what we have to do in times like these, because it's not over. I'm just giving you the facts. If you want some more facts, you can see us on Canadian Drain. Canadian Drain needs your help to stay afloat right now. So right down there, probably in the very first pinned comment, you're going to see how you can help out there. We also have a Twitch. You need to go check that out. Twitch TV/Political Drain Digital. Twitch TV, twitch.tv/Political Drain Digital. Herb Digital is there, and we have more hosts coming soon that's going to be doing all types of fun things, from gaming to live marches, as well as what we do here as well. Trying to reach out to everybody. But join, get those numbers up. Help support your independent media. That means Political Drain, Canadian Drain, twitch.tv/Political Drain Digital, and God dog it, anything else. They can't beat us. They don't have the numbers. Right now, they just have corrupt judges. They won this one. Make sure we win next time. Educate yourself. Educate others, and then come back for more. Hey, yeah, you. Before you click away to watch someone unbox a tactical toothbrush, let's talk about something real. Political Drain isn't just another content mill. We're a digital front in a very real war. Not with bullets, but with ideas, with action, and with solidarity. We pair urgent news with critical education. And we build community around actual resistance, not the hashtag kind, the kind that moves. But here's the thing. None of this is free. It isn't. Behind every video is time, labor, research, and some weird guy asking if we're going to pay the hosting bill. And yeah, some of that money goes to things we can't necessarily say out loud. If you know, you know. Let's just say our special ops aren't Call of Duty LARPers. They're people making real moves to protect, uplift, and organize. You're not just funding a channel. You're funding a resistance network in a world where capital still calls the shots. Unfortunately, in a system built on artificial scarcity, even mutual aid has a price tag. And if we want to grow, if we want to win, we need your help. We need your help. So if you've got even a few bucks to spare, toss it our way. It's not for ads. It's not for merch drops, but for people making moves in the shadows so others can do it in the light. It's just us and you. So fund the mission, fund the fight, fund the future, because nobody's coming to save us. We save each other. That's how this works. Follow us on all these things you see here, and our link tree is in the description. Maybe even get some merch.
That was the Political Drain podcast, which can be heard on www.groovechillradio.com/political-drain and can be viewed on the Political Drain YouTube channel anytime. Once again, thank you for listening to Groove Chill as we resist fascism in any form, pursue democracy, peace, and love.